Okay, we had a little computer glitch here, so sorry about that, a little bit late. But I'd like to go ahead and call our meeting to order. That's the points of order. Basically, the other thing I forgot to say at the front is that we are being recorded. We got the public on there if there's anybody there, but we do value public comments. And if you do have something that you want to get to our attention, make sure you either send an email or contact John and he can get it to us. So moving on, was there any points of order? We'll move right into our board items. Is Mike here yet? No.
It's right here.
Oh, of course. The very first thing we have on there is the dash presentation.
Yes, and are they online, ready
No,
to?
I don't have anybody.
Okay. So do you want to come back to that agenda item and then?
Yes,
see if you're able to join?
John, do we have the,
We don't have any attendees.
do we have the resolution?
Yeah. Gotta have it.
Okay.
Do you have the forms?
Yeah.
Because it would be nice to see them.
Here, they look like. Okay, so. John, I haven't got a call on you. Do you want to kind of address what this is, this resolution?
I think Shannon might know better. She's the person.
I've not read the whole resolution, but do you want to go ahead and kind of present what it is?
Yes, so Whitby Health tort claim form is what you're reading right now, is the form that is for Whitby Health that's specifically and who the registered agent would be and the hours that they're available and contact information. Part of that is having this through the county assessors or auditors for approval, once we approve.
Okay, do you want to explain what the whole process is, what the form is?
For the tort claim,
Yeah.
so the tort claim is a claim, sorry. Fairly.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. So tort claim is a statute that requires the district to appoint the agent for a claim for damages. So that is what this claim form is used for. From another outside. entity.
And
So is this something that someone would fill out if they felt that there was like a malpractice? Or is it an injury?
Practice legal contract violations.
Damages.
So any type of litigation.
And it would,
Have you had a chance to look at it? Like, okay, so. Go ahead and pass this down. That's the form that people, somebody would fill out. If they're going, if they have an issue. And this is actually appointing Shanna as our contact person
to receive it.
to receive it.
And then,
the past, I think Jake was getting these.
Yes.
Formalize this.
correct.
And so we have Shanna on there and now we have back on there, so. Let you have a moment to review that and read it.
And we didn't have this before because we did have an attorney on staff.
Yes, it's been Jake was a contact.
Correct.
Took care of that. So now we need that.
This process.
Kenna, did you talk to the gentleman that with gas, were they going to be on?
They went to follow, Becky went to follow up right now.
Okay,
So momentarily, hopefully they're able to join.
okay, that's it. Well, while they're reviewing the resolution right now, we can come back to that after we bring that a chance to read it. I did need to mention that Eric Anderson does have an excused absence today. So that we're missing one commissioner. Are there any contracts that we review or that? No, no, so we have nothing on contracts. So do we, Greg, did you read the resolution itself? Not completely. To me, it's pretty straightforward. We do have features that we really in mind. Somebody like
I make a motion that we approve resolution number 445.
Second?
second, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We're back to Shanna and to Commissioner Kellmeyer on how to craft a message to political representatives for border payment and care.
This is sort of the outgrowth of the conversation that was started at our last meeting. And thinking that instead of all of us just, sending emails that will go to staffers, that we take a few moments and sort of think a little bit about what it is that we're trying to accomplish, who it is that we're trying to influence, and whether or not it would be something that might be better done in person versus just individually sending messages through. And I mean, I've done this on other issues on a federal level and also on a state level on certain issues. But I come into the meeting today and voila, our quality person has a much better way of presenting it. And so I would defer to you.
So I reached out to our insurance and asked for a representative, if we have assistance through our company to help support this legislature and a letter, and what can we write in the letter and have that guidance. So they provided us a resource here, Washington State Hospital Association Rural Advocacy Days, which talks about many elements that we were talking: orders, staffing, resources, census, and reimbursements for Whitby Health. But she would like to partner with us to reach out to the legislatures on our behalf and education for our board on lobbying. So if we have interest, we're able to work with her directly.
That is exactly what we need. That's the biggest issue that was presented at the state meeting, was that they're the politicians that are in office. They're the ones that influence on these issues that CMS, a lot of them, their hands are tied. It has to be political or you have voted on back there. And so for us to try to figure out, okay, so are we talking this issue is a federal issue or this issue is a state issue? We don't have that expertise, and great to have them guiding us through and helping us to put that together.
So Shanna is going to set up a Zoom meeting for us to be, for me to be included with the attorney and with Shanna, sort of to explore this, and then we would come back to the group as to what their recommendations were and some of the nuances that they can help with.
Yeah, and they're gonna be able to figure out, when they're back in session, do we hit them up while they're in session, or do we hit them up in some offices, and they know all that workings, and I think that's a great idea, so I really appreciate that stuff.
And are there any thoughts that either of you have on follow-up? I mean, we would certainly include you in the direction that we're heading, probably to make sure that there would also be a sign off from us as commissioners from the hospital, if it's a hospital effort.
The Washington Hospital Association is a very, very active lobbyist organization.
Yeah.
During the legislature, they reach out and request help and assistance. And that's the time we need to write letters and contact our state representatives, but they are the good lead point on that, like Shannon's brought out.
Radio.
No, it's way too new to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, in order to get any action done, we're finding out more and more every year. You gotta go to the politicians and try to get them, to make a move on things, and use pressure on them. I think Shannon handling it with the Washington State Hospital Association, that has a clout more than just us just going into hospital, so.
Yeah, no, it sounds like an excellent methodology to approach.
Yeah, and so let us know time frame. And we'll get back and talk about the thing more. I think this is excellent.
Great. And thanks to Ashley and Quality for help getting this information together too. It's hard to track it down sometimes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So back up to Dash, ma'am.
Are they on now? They're on mine. Dash is on.
Okay,
Okay.
you want to get them to introduce themselves?
Sure. Are they both? Okay. Is it Danny and Ed, correct? Okay.
Hi there. Yeah, this is Ed Phippen. I'm Vice President at Washington Hospital Services, which is a part of the Hospital Association. And I believe on the phone, we have my colleagues, Danny Lunder and Albert Froling. And I'm hoping it will be possible for Albert to share his screen so he can walk you through the demo.
Okay, and this is Shanna. You are at the board work session for Whitby Health. Can you give us a brief introduction of all three of you?
Yes. So my name is Ed Phippen. I'm with Washington Hospital Services and Washington State Hospital Association. And with me is Albert Froling, who is the Technical Program Manager in Data Analytics at the Hospital Association, and Danny Lunder. And Danny, I apologize, I don't know your title. Albert, can you share Danny's title?
Senior data analyst. Sorry, I was muted.
Okay, great. So Danny is Senior Data Analyst at the Hospital Association. And we are here to share with you a demo of the Hospital Association's marketing tool, or market strategy tool, Dash Premium. Is that enough of an intro?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to hand it over to Albert, who's going to walk you through the tool, and then we're both here to answer any questions you have.
All right, thanks, Ed. Just to check, how long do I have to present?
This is Shanna. We gave you approximately 15 minutes.
Yeah, but
total.
we want to understand it too. So whatever you need.
Till
So,
then,
Albert.
Till then.
All
So
right.
I think just jumping right into the tool, Albert.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So this tool is located on analytics.wisha.org, and we call this site Dash. So all of our hospitals and members have access to the free portion of Dash. So anyone that wants to use comparison quality data or finance data can access that here. But today we're going to be talking about Dash Premium. And Dash Premium is a suite of dashboards, and it has an ad hoc analysis tool that sits on top of our state's inpatient and outpatient data. So traditionally, we just had inpatient observation claims with our CHARS program the state had. WISHA has expanded that to include all UBO4 claims, which is basically anything that's hospital-based. So we don't just have inpatient, but we also have emergency department, ambulatory surgery, therapies. So it greatly expands the scope of our data. So I'm going to jump right into one of the dashboards, and you should be seeing the website now. They put it on the right screen. Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yeah, we see it.
Great. All right, so it's going to load real quick. And so let's see what kind of data that Whitby has in PNW Pop. So I've selected Whitby. It doesn't look like we have all the data there. We need the data all the way back to 2020. So let me select, I think Island Health does, and I think they're pretty close proximity to you guys. And they do have a full submission. So I selected Island Health, and I'm on the top left here, we have inpatient, top right, we have outpatient. It's separated into a few categories. And here we have a line graph that would show like inpatient medical claims by month and that percent change over month, and then the average length of stay. We also have an ability to compare. Ed, were you going to say something?
No.
We are able to compare different time periods. So right now we've selected quarter. So we're looking at the current quarter, which is July of 2022. We have about a 3-month data lag, which is a big improvement on CHARS, which has about a 6-month data lag. And then we can quickly see some quick statistics, like medical inpatient claims are down 7.4% when looking at Q3 of this year compared to Q2. And then if we look at it year over year, it is down only about 2%. So not big cyclically. And you can see the same type of information here for outpatient. On the bottom, we have a bunch of service lines. And then we have our payer categories here. And it's separated into inpatient and outpatient. So it just gives you a general snapshot of how are you doing by each service line. So if you wanted to take a quick peek at orthopedics, you look at total inpatient, it's down about 26% when looking at Q3 to Q2 2022. And then the outpatient is down 6%. So darker the red, the larger the decrease. So I don't think we have a ton of time to jump into all of the service lines.
Hey, Albert.
Yeah.
Can you show them where people go to get, where Whidbey Island residents go to get colonoscopies?
Sure. I'm going to bring up the surgical procedure dashboard. And this dashboard allows us to pick groups of specific procedures, like colonoscopies, and then we can do some analysis. We are working a little bit more to make it a little bit easier, and we're going to group these claims. So it's easier to get a quick snapshot rather than having to select individual procedures. So I'm going to select colonoscopies on the inpatient side. I'm going to go to the outpatient. I'm going to look for colonoscopies. And there are tens of thousands of procedures. So let me do that real quick.
This is Shanna. Can you enlarge the screen
Sure.
for visual over here?
Yeah. So
So
I
you
think I'm gonna look at that gastrointestinal imaging procedures.
You said that you didn't have all of the data from Whidbey Health, is that correct?
That's true. I don't think we have a full submission back to 2020. So I think we only have a kind of a smaller subset of your data, probably just 2022.
Which actually may be more realistic because it's after, you know, as COVID is declining and really 20 and 21 are extraneous and are not going to give you helpful data in terms of the direction that we need to be heading.
That's true. And that's another reason why we're going back to 2019 as well and gathering that data for all the hospitals in Washington State. So I've selected these gastrointestinal imaging procedures on the outpatient side. So this tool allows us to select ICD-10 codes, CPT codes, which are two different hierarchies and categorizations. And then we can explore them here together. So right now, this is rolled up as a system, and then I think for county, which counties we want to select? Probably Island County, and let's say,
I think it's just Island for Whidbey.
okay,
Is that correct, commissioners?
Have no idea. Yeah,
Yes.
and it's Whidbey Island, but it's Island Hospital.
Island County. Yeah, Island
No,
Hospitals in Skagit County.
okay, so let's pick Island in Skagit.
There we go.
So here we can aggregate the procedures on inpatient and outpatient, look at the total procedures. Look at that market share for the two counties that we've selected, Island and Skagit. And then we can get some statistics like the percent of commercial patients, the percent of inpatient procedures, some severity metrics about the patients, the average patients that go there on a 1 to 4 scale. And then we can get other things like the average inpatient length of stay. And here we have 30-day all-cause ED visits. So let's say you got a colonoscopy or some other procedure. What percent of patients go to an ED after that procedure within 30 days? And then we also have,
This is Curtis. I have a question for you. On this dashboard, is there a way to zero in on our zip codes and see where our island residents, where they're going?
sure, we could select specific zip codes here.
I have the zip codes for you, Albert.
Okay.
98236. 98260. 98249. 98239. 98277. And 98288.
You got one typo in there.
I think I may have inadvertently,
Did I go too fast?
a little bit. I think I accidentally X'd out of one of them.
I think
Yeah.
98239 is important. We're getting 98239.
98239. Okay, so I have 3 zip codes here, 98239, 98277, and then 98288.
The nice thing about Dash Premium is once you're a user, and I apologize, I can't figure out how to turn my camera on. So all you get to see is my headshot there. Once you are a Dash Premium user, you can set your own market in Dash Premium and it keeps it for you and no one else can see it. So you can set your market and
Yeah, so like this is an example. And you know, if you were down in maybe Pierce County or the South Sound, you could select Pierce, and whatever zip codes that you defined as that market, it would automatically filter the entire dashboard down on your service area. So we can look at this geographically with those zip codes. So carry over. So I think that needs to be filtered on all the views, but here is Island and Skagit County. And right now we're looking at the percent commercial for the procedures that we selected. And it looks at the organizations, it sorts them by the procedure count descending. And then this right now, this bar on the left is showing you the percent commercial by facility. One cool thing is
Zoom in on that image so it's bigger again on the screen.
sure, yeah.
Not the map, just down below. The
Okay.
data below. Bar graphs.
Organization.
We can select other measures like the inpatient length of stay here. It will change the map. And then it will also show you the statistics for inpatient length of stay, by procedure count, by facility. And then one cool thing is in this dashboard, we've integrated the ability to switch between organizations and providers. So now we can look at these gastro procedures, colonoscopies by provider descending. You can also go over here to 30-day ED visits to explore that more. And on the top left, we have all of our providers, some quick statistics about the procedures that we selected. We have down here, if they went to the ED within 30 days of their procedure, where did they go? For Skagit and Island County that we selected. And then it has the primary diagnosis of that ED visit. And then it also has the day they went in from the procedure. So a lot of times we see patients go in 1 week from procedures, especially cardiology or orthopedics procedures. They usually, if they do go to the ED, it's usually within 1 or 2 weeks. And like if we wanted to learn more about this provider, Dean Joel, we could select them. It looks like it splits 50-50 between Island and Skagit. So when you look at little like procedures that have a little bit higher volume, you get a little bit more information there. So I think there's only probably 2 claims that actually went to the ED from this provider. And then another cool thing is we can look at severity. So sometimes, you know, people will say maybe that, you know, I have a higher all-cause ED rate because my patients are more severe. And so this would be a way to explore that. So on the x-axis, we have the inpatient APR-DRG severity. And on the y-axis, we have length of stay. So we're trying to see if there's a relationship between that inpatient DRG severity and length of stay. And I think for this one specifically, it probably has a little bit low sample size. So we can roll this up to like, let's say a facility. And there's not a super strong relationship, but it is generally up and to the right with this procedure. So again, we're just looking at Skagit and Island County residents. And we're showing that there is some relationship between the patient severity for those colonoscopy procedures and the length of stay. And there's some other things that we can see here as well, like mortality risk. We can look at that relationship. We can also look at, is there a relationship between inpatient mortality risk and that all-cause ED visit? It's generally up and to the right, but again, it's kind of a lower sample size.
Yeah, but this will give us a look at how many people from Whidbey Island go off island for procedures. You know, so, you know, how many people that, you know, have like, you know, whatever colonoscopy, how many of them, you know, stay on the island and how many go elsewhere. So we know what we're losing on that market share and, you know, how do we gain it back? So it's like for every procedure, that, you know, when I saw this down in Renton, you know, it was a lot better up close to the screen, but you're able to see even in each provider, you know, how many of these different procedures they did. And so as you're trying to expand, you know, a service or you're exploring a new service, you can go in and see how many of those procedures does Island do. You can also track it, like how many of them they do that are coming from, you know, zip codes from here. You know, and so it's like, okay, if we're going to do a new service, this system is able to tell you how many patients, you know, we lose that go to Island or Skagit or Providence. And, you know, is it worth us expanding that to go after that?
Of interest right now would be like urology and deliveries. How many deliveries really now? I mean, urological cases.
Right, and basically like knee replacements, how many, you know, knee replacements are going off island? You know, and so what are we missing there? you know, there's certain procedures that we can't do. But the other thing I like that these guys presented down there too is that it gives our doctors an opportunity to look at who do they refer somebody to, because they'll see the outcomes, you know, so it's like, you know, hey, you know, doctors at XYZ hospital have better outcomes than the guys at ABC over here do. And that's where we've been sending people, so we would send them to where we want our patients to come back to us saying, hey, that was a great referral, you know, and that we're really pleased with where you sent us to.
It can also tell you, in addition to leakage, so patients leaving Whidbey to get a procedure that's offered at Whidbey, and in addition to identifying new service lines, it also tells you by provider that you have at Whidbey what their case mix is, the percent of cases that are private insurance versus public insurance. It shows you if they have privileges at multiple hospitals. Is there a difference in their referrals based on the type of insurance the patient has? So it provides really granular information that helps highlight areas that will enable you to care better for the people on your island.
Who provides you the information for these forms and everything? Is that something that through our quality office, they have to go through? And, or is it automatically done through computer technology?
I think it's a combination of both, ma'am. The system, it doesn't require Whidbey staff to enter, you know, granular data into the database. That would take forever. No one would want to do that. It does require them to establish the connection on a regular basis and make sure the data gets transferred correctly. And then, as is common with large sets of data and computer systems, there are often errors that happen. And we have you know, some errors are fine and are accepted, and if it goes above a certain limit, we ask the staff to work on figuring out what the errors are and how to resolve them. So anyway.
Yeah, so we collect all this information on behalf of our hospitals and submit a portion of it to DOH. And then we give it back either through the purchase of the data set or Dash Premium to our members. And I just want to show you right here is if we have a dashboard that doesn't necessarily answer all of your questions, which they never do, you can explore the data in detail. So I pulled up this ad hoc explorer. It's pretty easy to drag and drop things or categorize things. And what I looked at is inpatient. I looked at vaginal deliveries and C-sections with the APR DRG, looked at Island County residents. And then I filtered to the discharge date of 2022, because that's when Whidbey, that's the date range that Whidbey has in there. So, so this is Island County residents, what facility they go to, and then I also dropped payer category on here and highlighted commercial. So it's extremely flexible. There's, I think 50 million rows behind this, so there's tons of data to explore. And if you want to come back to this later, the great thing is that you could save this view, save this dashboard under either your folder, you could share it with people at your hospital. And when we update the data monthly in the background, you can come back to this analysis and it will be automatically updated.
So you can watch the change over time as Whidbey implements, for example, new marketing around, you know, having babies at Whidbey. You can watch change over time. You can watch the results of that marketing campaign and adjust it as you need to.
A couple of questions. Is there a cost associated with this?
Yes, there is. It is in the first year, the cost is $22,500. That provides Whidbey with 10 licenses. So 10 different users at the hospital can use Dash Premium. In the second year, it's cheaper because you're paying, our pricing scheme is a little complicated. You have to pay for each year of data. So in the first year, you're buying 3 years of data. In the second year, you'd only buy 1 year of data. So it would be cheaper, less money.
You mentioned one of the questions you were asked was about data, and I'm not sure that it was very clear the answer. Where is the data inputted? Who inputs the data, the raw data?
It's somebody either from your rev cycle, most likely, or your IT department. They take UBO4 claims and submit it to PNW POP, the system that we have. Usually that's automatic. So they'll create an extract based upon your discharges.
Essentially, it comes from your EMR. So like who inputs the data? Every time your clinical staff and billing staff interact with your EMR, they're putting in data that eventually gets into our database. And then there's one person at Whidbey, and I apologize, I don't know who it is, who's responsible for making sure that the data transfers on a monthly basis.
And what would you say is the degree of accuracy? You mentioned initially that you didn't have all the data, it wasn't complete. Have you ever assessed the accuracy? Because obviously there's decisions being made, quite a few different decisions. What's the degree of accuracy historically?
So we require no more than a 2% error rate on the data that's submitted. The other part to your question, which sounded to me implied, but you might have meant it directly, is do you have all the data from the residents that we care about? And we're really transparent about the data that we have. There's a screen in there that shows you. We have, starting in 2022, we have data from all the hospitals in Washington, and we're working on getting that historical data in there as well.
And last question is there a training program for the person who supposedly would suck this data out of EMRs, which sounds very complicated, and inserts it into some receptive portal that you have?
Yes, sir. Our staff member here, Miriam, works closely with the people at all the hospitals who are responsible for doing this. A lot of it is automated, so there isn't there hasn't been a need for a formal training system. It's been more informal at this point. And once it gets, Miriam works intensively with all of them, and once it gets set up, it becomes less of a, like with anything new, right? And once it gets set up, it becomes less of a burden.
Yeah.
And last question, do you have any user reviews in terms of the perceived quality of using the system?
User reviews? So reviews from other hospitals that are using the program?
Correct.
Yeah, referrals, essentially, references. Yeah. We are happy to put you in touch with the other hospitals that are using Dash Premium, and you can ask them. So we're part of the hospital association. The culture that we have at the hospital association is that we need to earn your membership every single day. Everybody from the CEO all the way down to an executive assistant is conscious of that, and we work hard on it. And we have a number of ways to get feedback on what's working, what isn't working. Albert, Danny, and his colleagues are adding new functionality to Dash Premium all the time to make it as useful to you and the folks at all the hospitals in the state as possible. And Danny and Albert hold bi-monthly office hours. where any user can hop in, can ask questions, can recommend changes, and they are constantly updating the program so that it meets your needs.
Thank you.
Did that
So-
answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So is this primarily a program that you have developed here in the state of Washington for Washingtonians or for Washington hospitals? And how many hospitals do you have as part of your dashboard?
So yes, this is available only to hospitals in Washington. It's available to any hospital that has submitted historical data all the way back to 2020, and it has paid the fee. We launched it in July of this year, and we have 6 hospitals, I think, or systems using it, including Multicare, Overlake. I'm trying to think of others that are near you that would resonate. We have some critical access hospitals using it as well, like Mason General down in Shelton. So we're starting it. It's the very beginning, and it's going to be pretty exciting as it goes on.
Well, since it's a new product, we ought to get a cut rate.
Well,
You are
actually,
getting a cut rate.
no, when I was down there in Renton, I was in there with 3 of you by ourselves. And you told me we were getting it for 50% off, so we were down like $7,000 to $8,000.
So I misspoke when we were talking. There's 2 parts to the.
I got it recorded.
Yeah. There's 2 components to our fee. One is to pay for the data, and one is to pay for Dash Premium, the tool. The tool costs you $7,500. The data, it costs you $15,000 because there's 3 years of data. So it was a little misleading the way that I described it, and I apologize for that.
No, I got Cynthia, she was there, so she witnessed it.
So is that implying that after the first initial entry into this or use of this program, that it would be like 5,000 per year after that?
Close. Well, not close. It would be about 15,000 a year after that.
Not close.
So could you send us some references of these hospitals in Washington that are top of your dashboard? You mentioned a couple of.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'd be happy to.
A name, the CEO's name or whoever.
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to. If I send that to, I've been communicating with Becky Harless about this. If I send it to Becky, would it get to you?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions we can answer for you?
Any other questions? Like I said, I was very impressed when I listened to you down there, and I saw it. It's kind of hard to really get the grasp of everything you can do over just a short presentation. Like I said, taking a look at it and finding out, say Overlake, how many orthopedic surgeons do they have? How many do knee replacements? What success rates have been? I mean, it could be a good tool for doctors making reference through referrals. To get good outcomes for the patients. I just like how the fact of all the data, it's a ton of data in there, even though you're kind of starting up fairly new. You got a ton of data in there. Anyway, any other questions for them? Thank you.
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you all very much for your time. If you have any questions afterwards, Becky has my email address. You're welcome to reach out to me directly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Just wanted to add
Yeah,
something.
I'll let her, real quick though, the presentation they did down in Renton where, You know, I mean, I was right by the screen and you're seeing everything they were bringing up. It was very impressive as to what kind of data is in there and the usefulness for it. I mean, I think it's a great tool. I was a little disappointed on the presentation. It was, you know, short and everything. I mean, I spent an hour. And I didn't get near as much as I wanted to in an hour. So it takes quite a bit to really go through it and see. But like I said, it's kind of neat that you can go in there and you can pull up the zip codes and you can find out, you know, how many patients are going to Providence for a procedure that we do. You know, how many are going to Island and Skagit. And I know Island Hospital, talking to them, and they're looking at this whole program, they're trying to figure out, I mean, they were pretty, you know, excited about trying to do this too. Anyway, and then you had some comments?
I just wanted to add something that they didn't really talk about. You talked about the historic data a lot, and that is something that if you're part of the program, they want you to put in. But to also remember that the data from CHARS and Pacific Northwest or PNW POP is data that all hospitals have to submit to the state. And WSHA has the contract to manage that data. So going forward, we're gonna have all that information if we use this program, even if the other hospitals aren't part of the program. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so even though they have like 6 they're working with organizations,
All of them have to submit. the
basically
data.
we have 50 some hospitals.
Right.
And they're gonna have the data from all of us.
Right, and that'll allow us to look at readmissions. If somebody goes somewhere else, they have a procedure here, but then they end up going somewhere else. We don't know. But this information will let us look into that further.
Yeah, like I said, it was hard on this
Yeah.
short presentation, but like I said, when you're sitting there and going through it and seeing all the things, and that's the big thing was.
Yeah.
It's not just information from the members of 6, it's all.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that was clear.
So I'd like to be a devil's advocate. Because I know that's very much to the contrary of
We
my
have to move on
position.
that.
Yeah. We're a small critical access hospital, and in the past, we have sort of gotten ahead of ourselves in terms of expenditures and things like that. I mean, to do this sort of data analysis and get into the fine weeds and everything takes a committed person to be able to do that, certainly at this point in time. And you know, so we may have the data, but how are we going to use the data to be able to either decide on a service line or something else that makes it worth the effort right now? And so I just, you know, throw that out as a consideration that maybe right now isn't the time. But something that we now know exists. And if we're already putting data into some conglomerate that it is analyzing, don't we have access to that back also?
We do, but not in this format that they use it. This information, we can create simple dashboards and download it into like Power BI, which is a program that we do have somebody that manages for us, and create more dashboards from the information. Because right now, we're limited in Power BI to what we can pull out of Meditech and the PNet, or whatever spreadsheets we create manually. Whereas this is already created, and we can just pull the information and create our own dashboards from it.
Is it going to change what we do?
I think it could. I think it could really impact readmissions and where people are going. Because he was doing Island County, but you can look at just the island. Just,
I mean, we already know,
right.
but you know, the ferries are getting worse. And you know, people are gonna want to stay here more and more. So I don't know, I just throw that out as a consideration, at least at this particular time. When what we're trying to do is get bodies to provide care.
Right, but
And
we just want to make sure that this gets out so that we're, you know, become part of the conversation. that we're talking about and exploring it. You know, there again, it's always once justified. It's like if we spend $25,000 on the system, are we going to use it to be able to bring a certain number of patients, you know, get them to quit going off the island and come to us? And it's like, okay, it just paid for itself. That's what we want to hear, that it did pay for itself. We don't want to.
Well, maybe Tim should write another grant.
He's already on.
I see he's over there shaking his head. I think he said yes. I'm not quite sure what he's shaking about.
No, I just throw it out as a
Yeah, no, like I said,
conversation.
But we do, we want to be very conscious of what we're spending money on, and, you know, we got guys trying to rebuild our finances, which is, you know, it's on its way. But like I said, when I saw this, it was something that, you know, I know they've been looking into it. And I just wanted to make sure that the board and staff is aware of it, that we're exploring it. You know, and we want to take a look at it and say, okay, you know, maybe, you know, that's the time right now, but it may be something we're.
Well, that's your full-time job. But this is what it would
But
become.
there again, within the staff, they
2%
gotta
take it.
figure out.
Yeah.
Who's going to kind of be the lead on it? You know, and what would that's part of the cost too, it's not just the 25,000, it's
certainly
the
is not.
staff. You know, and so there's more data that we can get internally. You know, to come back, I said, it's kind of an exciting program that has great potential.
I think you raise a lot of interesting data. Right now, I think Bill makes a good point about you having the cash to fund it. So I might suggest that give us a chance to check these references out.
Yeah.
That will be coming in and maybe you, and Paul, a couple other people, Shannon, to sit around the table and listen to them and see what they're gaining out of it, the information they're using. We're looking at right now, we use kind of our medical staff and page and some other state data we get from the Washington Hospital Association. Like from the Washington Hospital Association, we can find out how many deliveries we have a month right now. I'm sorry, a month, a year, which is 900, and going up, deliveries that come from this island. So, there's some data we have, but I said, give us a chance to take a look.
Yeah, this was never meant to come as a vote on, you know, going forward with it. It's just trying to get everybody up to speed on a system that's out there. We want to be thinking about it and get more data on it. It has a good potential, but like I said, right now, I just wanted the opportunity to get these guys to kind of do a presentation on it. So you know what's out there and really get more information back. Okay, we'll get back in. Now to the big part of the day.
Oh, yeah.
We are going to talk about our public budget hearing.
So that will be, according to district rules and regulations, we need to have a public hearing update. This is the first go around with this administration in doing that. So we need to have a high level budget presentation open to the public, and we have to advertise it 2 weeks in advance of this, and it has to be on or before November 15th of each year. So we do have a budget. We presented you a draft budget, and we would like to present that on the 15th. And it'll be a high level budget presentation, not a detail, but more high level. Paul will lead and throw out our growth revenues and net expenses, where we project in this year and what our budget projection will be for next year. And then if any public wishes to join, they can join us virtually or come to the meeting. And that will need to be done on before November 15th. So we scheduled it for, we would like to schedule it if you are okay with that for November 15th, I think at 9 a.m.
Yeah, I think we've already sent out everything.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's already been sent out.
Everything's sent out.
Notification.
And Connor has had it advertised, he'll have it twice in each of Saturday's newspapers leading up to that, so we'd like to have that public.
That's the 9 a.m. special meeting on the 15th.
Yes,
That's correct.
Have there been any changes to the budget, Paul, since the last time?
No.
Okay.
And then there will be a vote, I believe, on the 17th.
right on the 17th, and we'll actually vote on approving the budget for next year.
Yeah, on the 15th, it's just basically the presentation of the budget.
Right.
and all the information, and so that whole meeting is, it's not to vote on the budget, we will do that on the 17th at the official board meeting. So on the 15th, it's strictly,
And that's a public hearing.
yeah, both of them.
And if I could add this. Brad Berg is presently putting 3 resolutions together utilizing the tax levy worksheets that were prepared by our assessor, the county assessor. So I believe those resolutions will need to be voted on and passed as well on the 17th. And then there's 2 documents, I believe, that you, Mr. Wallen, are gonna need to sign that we will then take to the assessor. So she can do her work in terms of assessing.
And you've been doing this every year, I think, and past couple of years, Jake has presented those to the signs.
Well, the other thing for the board is that, we deal with Brad Berg a lot. He's, been part of the hospital association. He's helped us out over the last 20-some years. Brad has actually offered up that he likes coming up to the island, and he would come up here to one of our meetings, just so that, he introduce himself. And that way we would have a face-to-face to know who Brad Berg is. And it's an opportune time just to, ask him some questions, but, he's the guy that will always keep us out of trouble. I know that you've heard us talk about his, mentioning his name on things, but I thought that might be a good thing to have them come up here so we can have a face-to-face with them. So if it's agreeable, then I will go ahead and reach out to him and kind of figure a date that he can come up to the board. He may come up for like a work session versus a board meeting. To try to do this.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, okay, that's why it's a good.
And I do have a question. Mike, you just mentioned that, our previous attorney walked on.
Jake.
That Jake in the past had taken care of some of these things with the assessor. Because when you talked, I guess it was the last meeting about having to present some papers to the assessor's office, having to do with the levy lift. I don't recall ever having heard anything about the levy lift having to then somehow be approved by the assessor before. Is that something
Yeah,
that
it's
you?
some, yeah, well, actually, it would come in front of the board, but we'd have to. It would be a formality that, you have to have this thing go into them like once a year or whatever, and then we'd have to sign
This is,
off.
I think this is more part of our new transparency, that you'll be hearing from us in this. So we had to dig into it, because this is our first go around, like Paul and Don and I first go around here, so. We went down and talked to the county assessor, and the levy lady, and she said, this is how you should be doing things, and so we was following the letter.
And so is this specifically because we just recently had a levy lift that passed?
I
And
think so.
that
I'm totally sure.
It did not take place prior to that?
No, there's been a lot of these documents that had to go into the county for years.
That you were aware of and
Yeah.
involved in?
Yeah, so Jake would bring it up in the fact that, hey, we gotta submit this, it just,
Okay.
we'd already passed everything. Anyway, going forward, I think, like I said, getting Jake up here and getting more things out there and almost putting together a calendar for the board to know. We have to submit this by this time, we want to make sure that we don't leave anything out there that's.
This is part of our budget calendar now. Every year, look up here, we'll have a budget calendar. Part of that will be get levy lift forms in that you just mentioned we have to sign. It's all part of the budget calendar now, so we will.
And the last year was a little sloppy.
Some processes have been a little bumpy here.
This.
So I have a question for both Paul and Mike. Everybody in this room knows that there's sort of a lot riding on this. That this hasn't been something that's been done, and a lot of change, a lot of investment in refocusing, particularly the finances. So a couple things. Are you going to prepare some sort of financial guru intro that sets the stage for the numbers, number one? Number two, would you consider a frequently asked question list that you pre-prepare in advance so that you could kind of answer the questions that the public might ask, were they to be here or were they to feel comfortable doing it, you know, so that we really get the word out, look at where we are, look where we've been. These are some of our strategies. These are some of what these numbers mean. But I think you've got a great opportunity in representing us that we want to really make sure we're prepared for.
I think that's really a good point, Greg, because I know I've had questions from people of what's happening to the essentially 50 cents a thousand that was increased with this levy that we approved of. Where did it go? And that we had promised that, you know, some of that would go to wage increases, and how that took place. And you know, I think that would be a very nice thing if you're able to do that.
I think the way I would attack that is perhaps in the initial presentation, talk briefly about those elements of the 2023 budget that we are moving forward that will contribute to our bottom line next year. And you know, we're giving pay increases. We've got inflation. We've got, you know, all of these things that are driving up costs. And it's important for us to maintain and build a good quality hospital that's providing great care for the people of this community. And it just takes money to do that. So I think maybe I could bullet point some of those things that are built into the budget next year that are costing us money and that they might be paying for.
Right, and rather than you have to answer them, I think he can fill all, we can fill all the questions that could come from the public.
Well, and I think that's Greg's point.
We won't let you down. I mean, you're not.
Well, you made a really good point, and it's a perfect example. If I was a citizen and I was listening to a presentation and I could see the numbers, which is something for us to consider the size, and I saw $1 million loss, or it was out of balance with costs, you know, I think, well, there's a problem there. But if someone like Mike were to explain, which he's very capable of, the critical access hospital and nature of cost versus reimbursement, trying to stay within this approximately 3 to 5% margin, now it makes a lot more sense. So those are the kinds of things that preparing for it will deny somebody from making an assumption or an inference that isn't in our best interest.
Right.
It's not correct.
Yeah, and not to mention the $2 million worth of capital equipment that we've got budgeted.
The average business person out there, when they're taking a look at the fact, it's like, okay, we did $1 million loss. You know, it's like, who stays in business after that? But you have to write off all these things. It's like you build an insurance company $100 and you get paid $20. You got to write off the $80. And the public doesn't understand that, you know, and so it's hospital finances is totally different than most businesses.
The last thing I think you're going to need to really emphasize, again, one input, is that substantial write-off, one-time write-off, and the rationale behind it, and what that signifies, you know, and that's going to be important to delicately present.
Right.
You know, that you've uncovered that. This is what we're doing now. This is how we're producing our cost reports. This is how we're analyzing, you know, and that's a one-time event that we're going to bite the bullet, so to speak, and moving on.
Right.
We're talking to the District Hospital Association, there are two we belong to, and they have to do this, and all of theirs, and it's a high level that Paul will present, not the detail that we've already been through with the finance. I mean, we've already been through all the deep dive finance on the budget. He'll give a high level, and then the specific questions will be able to answer them.
And real quick, James, I mean, I want to thank James. He's done a great job involved in the finance committee and a lot of things going on. Really great help there. But having the meeting yesterday and going over it, the fact that it's going to be mid-year next year or later in the year before we're going to actually have so many of these things cleaned up, organized, and then really start having the accurate numbers. I mean, they've had to go back years ago, you know, just really putting things together so that everything's straightforward, clean and all that. So just so that the rest of the board knows that what you figure about mid-year to into late next year is when we're really going to have it organized. These guys are doing a great job, but it's been a massive undertaking.
So that's when we're gonna be at 140.
Yeah, they guaranteed it. They're not leaving, they're not leaving none of them. I mean, we can't, your flight. You know, and so that, they're here until the board will have to vote on whether we're not releasing.
We're not at 140. It's all Mr. Golders. All his responsibility.
Yeah, so like I said, just, you know, make sure the board knows that it's gonna take some more time. But there's been a lot of, you know, we got progress to make on the cash to come in, but there's also the progress on what the books are, how clean they are. And so, like I said, that's been the number one goal, and it's gonna take some time because we don't want to rush that. We want that to be very accurate.
Right, you know, I'm gonna be presenting the September financials here in a few minutes. And those financials reflect only what we know today. There are some unknowns in our balance sheet that we will be discovering over the next couple of months and correcting. So I'll just throw that out there
Did you introduce your
to
coworker?
set the stage. Yeah, certainly.
The rest of the board?
Yeah, Wayne Colson, third day on the job, replacing Matt Todd, who spent his last day here yesterday as Director of Finance. Wayne is our interim Director of Finance, comes to us from Texas with a lot of experience, for-profit, not-for-profit, healthcare experience, and I believe he was CFO of the year at one of the for-profit hospital organizations that he worked at previously. And maybe I stole your thunder.
No, oh, you wanted me to speak?
Anything else you'd like to
Oh, okay,
say?
all right. No, I'm glad to be here. I have a for-profit, insurance, and not-for-profit experience. And I spent the last 2.5 years working in critical access hospital. I can actually say y'all are not the first one that have had these issues. I just got I was at a position where they hadn't done financials for 2 years. So it is there. There are things, and I'm working with Paul to identify what all those items are and do a separate priority as to how we're going to address them.
And you're in an interim status.
I'm an interim, that's just now.
So you're working directly for Health Tech?
Yes.
Well, no, he's
Not exactly, but through the hospital,
Yeah.
yes.
his management is here.
Like I said, none of them, we
Yeah.
give them, we've got this. You know, we didn't understand the laws of Washington. Possession.
One of the things he has a strong background in also is revenue cycle management. And that's a bit of a weakness here for us. Lady who's in the role right now, and she's been working a long time, she's done very good. But you'll bring fresh eyes, fresh information to the revenue cycle. And we have a new revenue cycle person from our board in about a week. So,
Yeah,
Monday. So, we'll put a plan up with her and they'll begin to work on revenue cycle improvements and processes that need to be upgraded. And he's aware of them and it would ready to come to us.
Days cash on hand.
I think we're gonna get into financial updates.
Oh, I thought, I thought you were done.
No, I
No,
don't,
no, no.
no,
Just begun.
I haven't even started.
At least you know my question.
Oh, we have the health tech update. John?
John Freeman, you want to introduce yourself to the board here? Sure. Thank you. I'm John Freeman. I'm with Health Tech out of the greater Nashville metro area. I live in Brentwood. Our office is in Brentwood, Tennessee. I've been with Health Tech bumping up on 20 years. I've been working in hospitals since 1984. So if I do the math, that's a long time. I spent 17 years with for-profit hospital companies, investor-owned hospitals. But for almost 20 years now, I've been with Brim and became Health Tech. In this job, we've been in many hospitals needing assistance. We've gone into hospitals and seen so-called CFOs present financials that they just typed up in Excel, that didn't even type to a general ledger. It's not quite that bad. It hasn't been that bad here, but a lot of the accounts here are not even reconciled. So what Paul's saying is what we present today is the best that we know it. But the balance sheet, which is a summary of all assets and liabilities and equity, some of the accounts in there are unreconciled. So until we get that hammered out, that there could still be some bad surprises. We hope not, but Paul and Wayne and the staff will continue to drill into that.
John is that intellectual resource that we have, that I have, that we wouldn't have if we didn't have Health Tech. So I've been working with John for 4 or 5 years at different hospitals with Health Tech. And he's a tremendous asset for me.
We've been, and I'll let you get in your, we've been, is what I see is happening is that with Health Tech, you know, we used to have just Whidbey Health that we're dealing with. And we had no other info on anything outside. And you know, what you guys are all bringing is your experience from all these other ones, that there are other people that's in the same boat we were in, some that are worse, you know, and you guys know where it needs to be. That's what you're bringing to us.
Yes, sir.
You guys, from all your experience, you know where we need to be. That's the goal to us. And it's like, it's really, you know, sliding into the tunnel that you can see that our goal is to get to that point where everything is accurate.
Absolutely. Mathematically, it's all doable. Just got to get it cleaned up and move forward.
Yeah.
It's my first trip here. You've met a lot of my colleagues, the clinical people, Carolyn St. Charles, maybe Sherry Demander, the revenue cycle person, Joyce Smith, and one of my bosses, Neil Todd Hunter, and we're a team. And it was important for them to come on early. A lot of my work I can do by Zoom call or remote, but I'm glad to be here. It's been 6 months. It's time for me to come. So if I can help you, let me know. He zooms in on some of our finance committee meetings, which some of you don't participate in, but he zoomed in with the folks.
So, are you doing all the uptake, for Health Tech, the update for Health Tech, or just?
That
the
was what I consider the update. I'm not
Well,
sure what you're used to.
That'll be at the next meeting, at the board, in our board meeting, on the 7th.
My question had to do with nominations or applications for the CEO.
I can give you an update on that, I guess.
Mike will be better equipped.
Okay.
I know what I've heard, you know, in phone calls, but I'm not really an authority on it right now.
Rather, really John's purpose here today was to piggyback with me on the presentation
Okay.
that we're gonna, the financial presentation that we're gonna be given.
His expertise.
Because I see your name here beside Health Tech update.
Yeah, but
That's-
it's both the CFO.
I'll get some. You want me to answer your question?
I can wait.
Really? Okay, move on. And she won't forget either.
So you're gonna finish the finance?
Yes, are we ready to get started with that? Okay. John, you bring an overhead? Okay, so, this is actually page 3 of the package. Page 1 would be, I need something that looks like this. Financial statements, month of September, thank you. 2022. Unaudited financial statements, and then in the months that come, you're gonna see a narrative explanation from me, which will talk about things that are driving the changes in the numbers that we're gonna see. Why are salary expenses up over budget in prior year? Why are net revenues lower than budget in prior year? Those sorts of things. Here's your table of contents, and so there's 16 or so pages here of information. And if you move on to the executive summary, John, that'll get us started. And so really today, what I'm gonna do is kind of just describe for you the format of the reports, the use, how we can use these reports to better manage the hospital, look for opportunities, where do opportunities exist, and that sort of thing. So at the top of this sheet is a very concise, high-level balance sheet reflecting your assets and your liabilities and your net assets. And you can see that our assets have grown from December from $109 million to $115 million. There's been a decrease in current liabilities and an increase in long-term debt, that bond financing that was undertaken. And then below that is a statement of revenues and expenses. And really, on this page, it's a roll-up of all of the information that follows in the 14 or 15 pages that follow this. So when you read through this packet, if you like what you see here and you understand what's going on, there's no need to look beyond these pages, but the pages that follow simply support what you're seeing here in the executive summary. So for the month of September, everybody's going to focus on the total net surplus, and you're going to see a profit $4,297, which compares with a budget of $1.8 million loss. Your year-to-date loss is $833,000, and that compares with a budget from this. Remember, it's actually the FY20 budget because there wasn't one last year. So, based on what we know, $4,000. The key statistics and ratios below that are some of the larger indicators of patient volumes, discharges, inpatient average length of stay, ER visits, outpatient visits, surgeries, worked and paid FTEs, change in net revenue from prior year, and that's pretty much it. Actual and year to date. Some of the drivers, volume drivers of our business.
Talk a little bit about how we compare to Washington and other hospitals.
Yeah, will you go, John, up a little bit there? Look at those charts on the right. Keep going up one more. And one more. Yeah. Well, you see net days in AR. This is an all-important measurement. This is how long it takes us to charge, code, provide a service, charge, code, bill and collect those dollars. And you see it takes us right now about 60.3 days. And this compares with what's the red?
Are you?
Thank you. This compares with 80 in the prior, 80.2 in the prior year. And state of Washington, 50.5. And then all critical access hospitals, like about 55.9.
We're at 60.3.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea, if we could reduce that 60.3 down to what the state of Washington, all hospitals is 10, that'd be about $3 million we'd have in the bank, as opposed to in our outstanding AR. So that's an opportunity that we're working on very aggressively. The next graph is kind of confusing. There's a lot of information there. This is operating and total profit margins. Many of which are negative, at least for our hospital. And then the days cash on hand, what Greta was asking about down there at the bottom, you lift that up, John. 52.1 is where we finished September.
And that includes the things that are put aside.
Yeah, that includes everything. That's fully loaded.
And when you pull them apart,
Yeah, 20. Yeah. Below that is a diagram that shows you salary and benefit expense as a percentage of net revenue, and how we compare to budget and to prior year. And we're up a little bit. So that in essence is the executive summary. There's a lot of information that it tells you on that page.
so. I'm not quite sure on that, salary and benefits expenditure, is that 63% of all of our income goes to salaries and benefits?
Yeah, so for every dollar of net revenue that we're generating, we're paying 56.4 cents of salary and benefit cost.
Okay, and who's in the yellow then?
Yellow is budget,
I see.
and then the red is where we were last year at 53%. So we're paying more this year.
Union increases, we just put in a really big increase to bring ourselves up to competition with Port Townsend and Cordes. Remember back?
Yeah.
2 months ago, huge increase that we drove out to use. And our, it's really our employees, I shouldn't say unions, and our employees feeling much better about where their salaries are.
Well, you made those decisions before the union contracts.
That's correct, and we just said this is what we're going to do, and we gladly accepted it, and our employees really benefited, and we're hoping that they will reduce our turnover right now.
Yeah.
So that's why that's
And Greta, there's many things that can influence or impact that percentage. Payer mix is one thing. If we're providing more services to patients who have commercial insurance, where it pays more than Medicare or Medicaid, that's a good thing. And that would increase your denominator or your net revenue. So there's a lot of things that can impact that. Also, I think we've Mike's been busy actively recruiting positions. And some of those have an immediate cost and there's not any immediate revenue associated with them. So that's something else to take into consideration.
Well, you know, what I think we all look for is the one-liners, the 30-second pitch. When people are distressed or are wondering where their tax increase went in terms of the hospital. And to have sort of an idea about, well, you know, not only did everybody get a pay increase, that, you know, we're getting more providers and that we're not getting reimbursed very well from TRICARE and Medicaid and Medicare. So that because of the nature of our hospital, that those are reasons why we are sort of working so hard to try to improve our financial status. And I think, you know, we talk so much about finances that it may be at the cost of talking about the quality of care that continues to be just excellent in terms of the services that we provide, thinking that all we care about is money. Well, that may be on the one hand, but we're not going to get any if we don't have excellent service and continue to do that. So, it's needing to expand perhaps how we discuss, you know, the hospital itself.
Thank you. I couldn't have described that any better. You're spot on. Did you have questions?
Just a couple things. First off, I think your intent on emphasizing the revenue cycle projections and more aggressive management is going to play very, very well, which it should. A couple things from the standpoint of that I think would help. You're talking to that screen and you know those numbers very well, but without a laser pointer, we don't know where you're talking and the audience doesn't know. So I would encourage you to do that. You said a couple times the word profit. I'm not sure that you meant to use that word versus surplus or revenue over cost. I don't think the community shouldn't probably hear the word profit. I don't believe. And the other thing I wasn't sure about, you said charge then code, and I don't think that's the accurate. I think it's code then charge then bill.
Charge first.
Charge first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in some cases, okay. If you're talking about outpatient services, charge first, then code. Yeah. And then for many inpatient services in ER, you're right, it's code then charge.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. That's really super.
No, that's really, that's a great observation.
Greg, has anybody ever told you, Grace, what percent of our operation is funded by tax dollars? You know, when you take a look, when people feel that, you know, the tax dollars run this hospital, it's such a small percent. And I can't remember what that number was. Maybe is it 10%? Yeah, and so it's like we have to get 90% of our funding, the insurance and all that. The actual taxpayer funds 10% of the costs here, you know, and so it's kind of deceiving because a lot of the taxpayers think, okay, I pay those tax dollars, that runs the hospital.
Even that's a good thing to bring out as
Yeah, as you're out there
That's possible.
in the public, you know, and people are asking, it's like, you know, the tax dollars, they help, but they're only like 10%, the best.
The crazy thing about this business and cost-based reimbursement is that if we cut expenses today, it's gonna reduce reimbursements tomorrow. And that's just a crazy thing.
That's kind of a federal government thing. It's kind of like the guy that is efficient gets punished, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like if they don't use their budget up within the military, they get cut next year.
Was it,
Whoever does the overrun gets more money.
the commercial payers pay more, so if we can get more of that commercial business, that's where we can make.
I had a bill the other day, just a statement, where we billed for $240. And they said that they reimbursed $360.
That's possible. Yeah. If.
Oh, I want to go to that bank.
Yeah, if we aren't charging more than we're being paid, shame on us.
Yeah, well, that's the point.
Yeah,
It's like they're paying us more than we were charging. It's like,
I had to talk to you because I got billed like 3,000 something, the insurance company paid like 270.
You change over her.
Yeah.
I
think you may be referring to the encounter rates that we get in our rural health clinics. And our encounter rates exceed our billable charges in many cases. And that's okay.
when, as long as
Well,
it's.
if Arkansas having a crazy conversation, I think it's crazy, he says, I think I can talk to some local companies and reduce our cost, and we charge us a little bit. And my thought was, I don't know if I can do that or not, now, is that crazy? No one to reduce those costs, because local companies we got to do it. Reduce costs. So I don't know if I want to do that, because we need to pay this cost report, because we're receiving more reimbursement by keeping our costs up. So if anybody heard me outside this room saying that here, they said, you're crazy. Why would you not want to reduce costs? I really probably don't. So I said, look, but I probably won't approve them if we bring them to. It's insane. Anyway, well, and one thing we'll do, Rick, for you is, I think, you and I agree, we'll meet once a week or so, and I'll carry you through all the vernacular and the words we use in finance 101 course, just designed for board members. So I'll carry through that. You'll hear us say things that you've never heard before in this. So I'd say just let us get you through this finance course, and Paul and I will work with you.
John, will you take us to the next page, please, and we'll just burn through these next slides. This is a useful graph here, financial ratios and benchmarks, and it's really useful in the sense that you're seeing year-to-date comparisons of this hospital to prior year and to Washington benchmarks and to critical access in total. And we've got a lot of opportunity to improve margins. And EBITDA, for those of you who don't know, is earnings before interest, depreciation, and amortization. And a positive EBITDA is an indicator of positive cash flow. So that's a very good thing, because the depreciation is removed from my bottom line number in that calculation. The next item down there is the revenue deductions percentage. You can see how what we're writing off for every dollar of charge today, which is 60.66%. Now that compares to prior year. Your current ratio.
We raise our charges, we probably cause that to move up.
Thank you, Mike. The current ratio 2.21 is that's an expression of our ability to pay our current liabilities with our current assets. So we have 2.2 times as many current assets as we do current liabilities, and that's a good thing. We are highly leveraged. Long-term debt to equity is off the charts. As we pay that long-term debt down and grow our equities, that'll improve. Over to the right, long-term debt to capitalization. Above that, you see average age of plant, and we're lower this year than last year, 11.4 years. And that's a good thing, because what that tells me is we're replacing assets faster than they're depreciating. And we are better, in that area than prior year and the Washington Critical Access Hospital benchmark. And if you move me up, John. The other way. Thank you. So here's a return on equity, it's presently negative. And then a graph that shows you that 85, almost 86% of our charges here are outpatient business as opposed to inpatient business. Inpatient's only 14.2% of our total business. And that's pretty typical for critical access hospitals.
Can you go down to the long-term debt?
Certainly.
Obviously, this has been a year where this has increased and we have monies, but you also have put some money aside to pay some debts towards the end of the year, isn't that correct?
Yeah, there's
The debt service.
dollars that have been set aside for long-term debt.
So those monies would directly impact that 361%, is that correct? So once that's put to use, then
Yeah.
we're gonna look better.
Yeah, once that's paid.
Yeah.
Once that money that's been set aside has been paid, that long-term debt would decrease and that would improve somewhat.
And I think I've asked Mike once before, at what point would we look at days cash on hand to try to reduce that further? And especially with the interest rate today, wouldn't it be advantageous for us to pay that down sooner rather than later?
It's as fast as we can, what we feel secure, we have enough cash on hand, we can do that, we want to pay our debt service off as fast as we can. And Mr. Goldberg's been driving that concept in finance committee meeting. But, I don't know, John, you may know better than Paul up here, but I'm thinking like 250 days of cash on hand, then we begin to pay that debt service down. We need to have some security, I don't know what your numbers are, but.
After COVID, after some of the nightmare financial things that happened the last couple of years, that the stimulus money kept hospitals afloat. I mean, I'd like to see a hospital have 150 days of cash all the time.
Well, yeah. And we don't know what the future holds with our numbers right now, even if we had 160, 100, 200, if we refine our numbers, these guys look and harden them up. Could be that, we don't have a cost report coming through that we've got to pay an overpayment. So, right now, I would say it's gonna be another couple of years before we look at cutting that debt service down by forecast, but these are the financial gurus here. To attack the big long-term debt, the 50 million debt service we got out there, the 10 million debt service, and there's 2 or 3 more. We owe a lot of people a lot of money.
I'd be comfortable meeting our debt obligations, but not exceeding them until we have a better sense for our cash needs.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, we have about $70 million in debt. We have about 17 million in our cash reserve account. Yesterday they raised the prime rate by 0.75%. They anticipate they're going to go up to 500 basis points or 5%. What is happening is the $17 million that we have invested, the rate is accelerating daily. We are now getting 3.15% return on that money. I anticipate by the middle of next year, we will be getting over 5%, hopefully, on our money. Our debt, we are paying out at a rate of 5%. So we may get to a point where we are possibly making more return on the money that we are holding rather than how much we're paying on debt, which would be an ideal situation.
Jim, what you said we're running in right now about $2,500 a day.
No, it's closer to about $1,400 a day, you know, but if we revise some of these bank accounts that I've gone through. We'll be able to shift a little bit more cash, it will be up to about $1,500.
CEOs always jack it up a little bit. Okay, so it's 15, that's pretty good. Keep that there.
And that's something that we weren't doing in the past.
Well, I get mine 5 cents per month.
Yeah.
It's only one meeting, yeah. You should.
Okay, here's page 2 of the financial ratios and benchmarks graph. Debt service coverage ratio. Off to the right is paid FTEs per adjusted occupied bed. And that one there is basically a reflection of productivity. You want that number to be decreasing. And there has been considerable improvement since last year. I think that's about 40 FTEs that were lower this year than they finished last year. On the next page, you've got, or below that, you've got salaries as a percent of total expenses and salary expense per FTE. And we're higher in both of those areas. And again, it's those things that we talked about earlier, the union increases. It's raises we've given employees and the addition of positions, some positions with high salaries has really driven up that cost per FTE. There's a bad debt write-off percentage there, and we appear to be doing pretty good there at 1.95% versus the prior year, Washington benchmark, and the other one, the critical access hospitals. Not much change in the supply expense per adjusted discharge, and net revenue and operating expense per adjusted discharge, pretty consistent with prior year. Doing good, John. Net days in AR, 60.35 is where we're sitting right now. 13-month average is 67.17. So really doing considerably better. You go back a year, 16 days cash lower. That's huge. That's probably $5 million cash. Below that, days cash on hand. See a trending of that. And monthly operating expenses, less depreciation and interest. And keep going, monthly net revenue. And recall, we had that big drop in August. That was a function of the overstatement of that cost report receivable that we had to correct, which dropped our net revenue. Here's some comparisons of some important categories: profitability, liquidity. Each of these are great indicators that tell you a lot about your opportunities in comparison to prior year and to others. And some of this is numbers instead of graphs that we were looking at on an earlier page.
They want the yellow and the blue ring, you want.
That's the direction you want it to be going. So you want paid FTEs per occupied bed to be going down. And well, we are in comparison to prior year, 6.86 down to 6.08. So that's a good one there. Supply expense per adjusted discharge is down a little bit, which is commendable given what we're seeing with inflation. Gross days and AR down. Got some deterioration in that net revenue per adjusted discharge, but again, we had that big hit in August for the restatement of that cost report receivable, which brought that down. And it, good, it's doing fine, you know. These are hospital statistics that are before us that tell us about the health of our business. Anything up there anyone has a question about? And here's a financial statement. This one's month versus budget in prior year. And this gives you more detail than the income statement that we saw in that first slide we were looking at. It was the executive summary. This really provides you a breakdown of the roll-up that we saw earlier. And in this slide, I'll point out that it looks like in the current month, we are paying no fringe benefits, but that's really just a geography issue that I've got. There's dollars in the salaries and wages in that 4.9 million that belong in fringe benefits. So we'll be fixing that in the months to come. Go down the bottom, there's the $4,297 profit that we talked about earlier. And on the next slide, you're going to see the same format on a year-to-date basis. And here we've got some geography issues with write-offs in the budget year being budgeted there in bad debt instead of discounts and allowances. So there's some cleanup on this that'll continue to happen in the months to come. And down here at the bottom is your $833,000 loss for the year. Okay. Here's a balance sheet. And again, this is really a drill down of what we saw earlier in the executive summary.
Oh, excuse me, one thing that really jumps out there is if I'm reading this right, prepaid expense $7 million.
Yeah.
I'd like to know a little more about that.
Yeah, so there's movement of some large numbers in this month. Representative of, there was a couple of years of invoices paid and charged to purchase services that should have been paid to prepaid assets and capital equipment. This was a couple $1 million. It's been reclassed out of purchase services. That's why purchase services is so low this month and depreciation is so high. Because this money was spent monthly to purchase diagnostic equipment, imaging equipment. That they knew they were gonna have to replace over the years. And instead of charging or writing those checks against an asset account, they were written against an expense account. So when we reclassed those dollars out of that purchase services account, we had to set up the assets. And then when we set up the assets, we had to depreciate them because they've been here for a couple of years. So you've got a dramatic reduction in purchase services expense and a high depreciation expense for the month. And then there's dollars that are sitting in prepaid that haven't yet been expended for assets that will be purchased.
Okay, it's like deposits or.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, we're paying in advance for assets that don't exist yet.
We'll deal with that more later.
Yeah, this was an agreement that was signed in 2018.
No, I've heard about that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't like that accounting.
It was just accounted for.
Thank you for finding it.
Yeah. Okay, so that number looks familiar to total assets. We saw that in the executive summary. And current liabilities. And your liabilities and your total net assets. Here's a statement of cash flows. This is basically a regurgitation of changes in your balance sheet accounts. Where's money going and where's it coming from? Yeah. So cash provided by operating activities was $1.4 million. At the top, you see the net income or loss. And all of that information puts to a net cash provided by operating activities. And then you've got cash flows from investing activities below that. And then cash flows from financing activities. The net increase or decrease in cash was $2,120 for the month. And we've got an ending cash balance of $16,076,000. And we're almost there. I appreciate y'all hanging on with me. This is a lot to take in. Here's your payer mix analysis, shows Medicare, our Medicare business is almost 64% of our total business. Inpatient and outpatient. Year-to-date numbers. And the prior year numbers. You can see we're doing even more Medicare business in FY22 than we were doing in 21. Capital purchases, here's a listing of capital that we've purchased throughout the year. $1.6 million. And let's go over there. And then these last two pages are the last 13 months of income statements for the hospital. So that's a lot. I appreciate y'all sitting through that.
Thank you for getting it caught up and presenting.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
This is the outcome report we've been waiting on so long to at least get to this point. A lot of data here from you, we want to dive in detail with available copy of that. And in the future, you'll get a higher level, that high level first page will be basically what we're presenting to the board, because the finance committee will already get the building.
Well, James, you were with us for a while and you saw what we were getting for.
What a difference. Yeah, and, you know, Health Tech has done such a marvelous job in really improving things. I am very, very impressed.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna let you guys stay.
Can I go to the airport in the morning?
No.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
So, yeah, like I said, it's, seeing the difference in reports for getting. And I know you still have quite a ways to go, but I mean, just the improvement of what you're seeing and understanding. Way better. Thank you. You got just a minute, like Greg back in here. You got a couple things to go.
Yeah, I got a couple things just real quick.
Are we gonna need anything for executive session today? No. Scratch that off.
We will have an executive session at the next meeting.
Right.
Some updates and conversation tomorrow.
Well, we're waiting for Greg to come back in. We do want to make sure that we thank, you know, him, Dr. Miller, and Curtis, and being here. There's not a lot of input with you guys today, but it's just the fact that it's really coming across as a team effort on everything that's going on.
In these work sessions, I'm kind of limited, Dr. Tom, I left something really big things up in there. I guess, I don't know if Greg's gonna come back. I know that some of us have to get to some other meetings here pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, you can go ahead and proceed. I just want to make sure that I did thank, you know, the members that are here. Like I said, I like the direction we're going. It's really, it helps build this whole team concept and camaraderie, and the fact that they're included in everything. So that.
So a couple of things, throw out to, answer Greg's question, which she asked, or she already has. So things are on the CEO search. Things are going really slow on the CEOs, a lot slower than we thought they would. I think Neil wanted to bring a couple of candidates to the November meeting, but it's now going to be December before he thinks he can bring, I mean, it's very, very detailed search where you can do a deeper dive than we did before. I think a couple of us felt around that we could have done a little bit better job on deep diving into being just and look at. So we'll do a really deep dive on those. So it looks like right now the forecast is bringing 3 to the December meeting. And in Neil's earliest forecast of having someone on board, if everything were to go right, would be like March of 2023.
How does this sit with the current interim
Oh,
CEO?
I negotiated with him yesterday. I shed some light on it.
We shed light on, and literally shed light on it. So
And so we came to a mutual agreement that he will be here until he gets released.
And with that threat, I reported him to Shannon for.
Threat.
That was a
So
negotiation.
that's what we're looking at right now, and we didn't want to keep the, I think maybe the intellectual resources intact until the new one comes on. Got a good word for you there, intellectual resources intact, rather than corporate. We were talking about wording.
Yeah.
So that's where it is right now.
So your wife's moving out? Here.
Possibly not to stay here any longer. Put me on the couch. Yeah, really short. So that's where we are on that. Just a couple other things. I think we had a really good visit, just an update from the team here, down at the Freeland Clinic. We're getting ready to open the Freeland up. Dark on December the first. And so a couple of folks went down there, so that's proceeding along well. And then just, we had a meeting this morning with the Washington Hospital Association, and they just happened to put on board education. So there is board education available through for our board members, especially new ones, where you can become certified hospital board commissioner. I let a couple of you folks know about that. I think we can get them certified, and I'll give them more information on that. And then Carolyn, St. Charles will be coming in too, for some new board member education. She's with our company, and she'll talk with our two newest board members. Any of you can sit in if you wish. But,
Well, then it has to be a public meeting.
no, just two.
Yes, but
Oh,
the
yeah.
minute you open it up,
You all sit in for board education. So you can't come, Brad. No, we'll do a special one for you two. Special one. Anyway, this would be really for the two new ones. That would conclude. I think, I know you can get going and, I think we'll wrap everything up.
Yeah.
We do appreciate everybody's time and the staff and things. Motion to adjourn, and we make a motion to adjourn. Second. In favor? You're right. Thank you.